വടശ്ശേരി ദാമോദര മേനോൻ സതീശൻ എന്ന ഞാൻ
Hello, welcome again to TheFederal. 100 days. That is not enough time to judge the full performance of a government, but it's enough time to understand its political direction. And the first 100 days of the VD Satheesan government in Keralam have been marked by a curious mix of ambitious promises, political controversies, and repeated course corrections. Operation Tufan, led by Home Minister Ramesh Chennithala, is one of the clearest positives of the first 100 days, with the government mounting a statewide anti-drug campaign and moving towards a more community-based approach. Priyadarshini, the free bus travel scheme for women, has also emerged as a visible welfare initiative, while Mission Samudra gives the government a larger development and investment vision. These initiatives offer the government an answer to the criticism that its first 100 days have been dominated by controversies, showing that there is also an attempt to move beyond political battles and focus on delivery. The biggest political charge from the opposition against this government is this: the Satheesan government is soft towards the BJP-led union government, or even worse, succumbing to the pressure of the Sangh Parivar. The government calls it pragmatism. The opposition calls it accommodation. And much of the debate around these first 100 days revolves around that question. Take the Vande Mataram controversy. The full version of the national song was played at the swearing in ceremony. Later, a government circular recommended the full 6 stanza rendition for the Independence Day programs. The left attacked the move. The IUML was also unhappy, though it did not make its opposition very loud. The government subsequently clarified that only the traditional first 2 stanzas will be used at government functions. But then, on Independence Day, at the official state level function in Thiruvananthapuram, Vande Mataram was not sung at all. So, within weeks, the government had moved from the full version to 2 stanzas and finally to no Vande Mataram at the official state function. That could be seen as a course correction, perhaps. But it also raised a question: why did the government walk into a controversy that could perhaps have been avoided? Now, look at the PM Shri. This was an even more politically difficult decision. The UDF had opposed the scheme while in opposition. But after coming to power, the government decided to sign the agreement with the union government. And it is important to note that this was not a decision without dissent within the government. M. Liju, Congress leader and excise minister, opposed the decision to sign PM Shri in the cabinet subcommittee. The government nevertheless went ahead. There was another controversy over allowing the union government logo to be displayed on houses constructed under the PMAY, which the LDF had not considered. Again, the government's argument was that Keralam cannot reject union government's assistance merely because it comes with certain conditions. The opposition sees it differently. For them, PM Shri, the PMAY logo, and several other decisions point to a government that is unwilling to take on the BJP-led government. And this is where the contrast with the LDF becomes important. The LDF government routinely used the governor's address and the budget speech to attack the union government over federalism, financial restrictions, and the state's share of resources. The Satheesan government has largely avoided that confrontational approach. The Chief Minister's latest argument is that confrontation alone cannot be the path of governance. That may well be a more pragmatic approach to union state relationships. But politically, It has opened the government to the charge of being too accommodating. The governor issue has only added to that argument. Governor Rajendra Arlekar has been summoning the state officials to Lok Bhavan on various issues. The opposition says the governor is increasingly behaving as though Lok Bhavan is an alternative administrative center, calling officials for explanations on matters concerning the elected government. Then there are the vice chancellors appointed by the chancellor. The opposition alleges that some of them are openly displaying their tilt towards the Sangh Parivar, especially towards the RSS. The SFI is up in arms against them in varsities and campuses. Politically, they feed into the same narrative that the Satheesan government is not confronting the governor or the union government with the same intensity as the LDF. And then came the Waqf controversy. The government's affidavit was criticized for appearing to depart from its earlier stance. It had agreed to fill the two vacancies for non Muslim and Shia members, a move the previous government had challenged in the Supreme Court. The opposition raised the issue strongly. The government then submitted a fresh affidavit saying the two seats would remain vacant until the Supreme Court decides the matter. Another course correction. Then there is the vehicle modification promise. This was a very popular election promise. The government had promised to allow modifications while maintaining safety standards. But the union government subsequently made it clear that states cannot simply alter the standards governing vehicle modifications. The promise has therefore not materialized in a way many expected. The government soon found itself dealing with the controversy over the chief minister's helicopter journey. VD Satheesan defended the use of the state rented helicopter, saying he had travelled to Kochi to meet an investor group whom he could not name. That explanation did not put the controversy to rest. Instead, it raised questions about transparency and the standards the new government had promised to uphold. But again, it would be wrong to portray the first 100 days entirely through controversies. Operation Tufan is one area where the government can point to a clear, coordinated response, bringing the police, excise, health, and education departments together to tackle drug trafficking and abuse. It combines enforcement with surveillance, public participation, awareness, and rehabilitation. The campaign offers the government a positive counterpoint to the criticism that these first 100 days have been dominated by controversies and course corrections. The government has tried to establish its own development agenda. Priyadarshini, the free ride scheme for women, is one example. Mission Samudra is another. The government has projected Mission Samudra as a major vision for Kerala's coastal economy, infrastructure, and investment. VD Satheesan has also spoken about changing the culture of governance, faster decisions, more accountability, more investment, less bureaucracy. He says many of the allegations the opposition are raising are nothing more than propaganda converted into controversies. CM has argued that government should function with a greater sense of urgency and responsibility. And he says the results will become visible within 6 months. That 6-month deadline is now important because after 100 days, the government has established its style. What it has not yet established is a clear record of delivery. It's true that not every controversy is a governance failure, but neither can every criticism can be dismissed as propaganda. So, how has the Satheesan government fared? It has certainly changed the political tone. It is less confrontational towards Delhi. It is more willing to negotiate. It wants to project itself as development oriented and investment friendly. But that moderation has also become its biggest political vulnerability. The question now is whether this is pragmatic governance or political accommodation. And there is another question that may ultimately matter even more. Can this government turn its ambitious promises into visible results? Because after 100 days, the government has had enough time to tell us what it wants to do. Satheesan says 6 months will tell us whether it can actually do it. That is when the real report card begins. For now, the first 100 days show a government that is ambitious and less confrontational, but certainly not free of controversies. That also show a government that has spent a considerable amount of its early political capital explaining, defending, and reversing decisions. The next 100 days will decide whether those are merely the growing pains of a new government or the defining character of the Satheesan administration.